Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and this is a Graco Classic Ride 50 child seat, which means it is time for our weekly child seat review segment. And today we're taking a look at the General Motors full-size SUV. Now the Tahoe, the Yukon, the Suburban, and the Escalade are all at their heart the same basic vehicle. They're all different variations on that same full-size SUV theme. GM's full-size SUVs come in two different lengths. The Tahoe, the Yukon, and the Escalade are the shorter variety, and that's what we're taking a look at here. The Suburban, the Yukon XL, and the Escalade ESV are the longer variety. We don't really change any dimensions internally. All we do is we get some extra cargo room right back here. Although there are significant luxury differences that separate the Chevy, the GMC, and the Cadillac, none of them really affect the installation of child seats, so this video does apply to all three brands. As I said earlier, we will be using a Graco Classic Ride 50 child seat in this video. This is a convertible child seat, which means it's suitable for forward or rearward facing use. This particular child seat is also suitable for children between 4 and 50 pounds, and I selected it because it was the most popular model on sale on Amazon when I bought them about a year ago. It's also very middle of the road in terms of size, so you can find smaller child seats and you can find larger child seats. Keep in mind that if you're looking at some of those larger, especially the wider child seats with built-in cup holders, things like that, you won't be able to fit 3 across as easily. As I usually do with 3-row vehicles, we're starting out with this front seat all the way back in its tracks, and I'm going to actually move it forward till I have about 2 inches of clearance between my legs and the dashboard so we can see how well the space is apportioned. One thing to note while I'm doing this is that, like General Motors full-size SUVs of the past, a decent portion of this footwell is actually taken up by the HVAC system in this vehicle, so we do have a little bit of intrusion right down here in the footwell. It's not quite as spacious down there for the passenger feet as you might think. With this front seat adjusted for me at 6 feet tall, I have an acceptable amount of room between this rearward facing child seat and this front seat. If this were actually attached to the latch anchors in the seat, it actually would be slid a little bit further backwards, giving us about 2 inches of clearance there, which is ideal for rearward facing child seat installations. It is important to make sure that your rearward facing child seat and your front seat are not touching one another, because if you do get rear-ended, this front seat can move a decent amount backwards and it can impact the child seat and injure your child. One thing worth noting is that in this Yukon, the second row does not slide forwards and backwards in relation to the third row. So you can't apportion more space to the third row and less to the second row like you can in some 3-row crossovers. Now the vehicle we're taking a look at right here is a 7-passenger Yukon. Keep in mind that you can get an 8-passenger version that has a 3-position second row bench seat. And you can also get a 9-passenger version of some models of General Motors full-size SUV that replaces the front captain's chairs with a bench seat as well. Let's start off the forward-facing section with the third row right here. As you can see, I was barely able to fit these 3 child seats across the back. I would recommend narrower child seats if you do plan on doing this on a regular basis. These barely fit back here. One thing worth noting is that even though all 3 positions in the back do have top tether anchors, none of the positions in the third row have latch anchors. And latch anchors are the safest way of attaching a child seat. You will have to use the lap and shoulder belt in this third row. Because we have the second row captain's chairs in our particular vehicle, it's obviously no problem at all to put 2 child seats right here in the second row. One thing to note is that the top tether anchor is all the way down on the bottom of the seat, and that's why these child seats have such long tether anchors, because it's practically right down there on the floor. If you do get the second row bench seat option, we do get 3 sets of latch anchors, which is fairly unique, and that would be the best way to install 3 child seats. This is going to be a little bit wider across the second row than it is across the third row, so you'd have no problem putting these Graco Classic Ride 50 child seats, or even child seats that are a little bit wider, right here in the second row. One thing to keep in mind is that unlike some crossovers, most notably the Nissan Pathfinder as well as the Infiniti QX60, you can't leave child seats right here in the second row and then get into the third row. So if you do put 3 child seats across the back in that bench configuration, you're not really going to be able to get right back here into the third row. Even in this vehicle, we can't slide the second row forward to help us get in the back row, so you are left to climb around this captain's chair and then right down here in the middle to get to the back, although it is relatively easy to do so because of the size of the Yukon. Climbing back here into the third row, you'll notice I have a lot more headroom than you'll find in something like a Pathfinder or a Highlander or any of those mid-size or large crossover vehicles, but I don't really have any extra legroom. My feet are actually flat on the floor in my third row foot area, but my knees are practically up to my chest. Overall, this full-size series of SUVs is very accommodating for child seats, especially if you plan on putting 2 child seats in the car and then you need to carry 3 adults as well as those 2 children, because this third row is very usable for adults thanks to this generous headroom back here. When it comes to cargo capacity, the big difference between the 2 different lengths of these full-size SUV series is right back here in the cargo compartment, because we don't really have a whole lot of room between this third row and the tailgate. As you can see right here, I have 2 bags right here. This is a 26-inch roller bag that's not a carry-on size, and this is a 24-inch carry-on sized roller bag, and that's pretty much all that will fit right back here behind the second row. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but you will find about the same amount of room in General Motors' large crossover vehicles, which are actually smaller on the outside than this. That would be the Traverse, the Enclave, and the Acadia. You will also find a decent amount more room than this in your average minivan. In fact, the average minivan has about 3 times the cargo room behind the third row as this vehicle. Even when all seats are folded, you will still find more cargo room in something like a Dodge Caravan or a Toyota Sienna. As it is in this configuration, I wasn't able to fit any child seats right back here behind the third row. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. I'm Alex Dykes, and again, this has been the 2015 GMC Yukon. Go ahead and click that subscribe banner at the bottom of your screen so you can be updated on all of my latest videos, including the full review of this Yukon coming up very soon. You can find me over at facebook.com/AlexOnAutos, at Twitter as AlexOnAutos. You can email all of your questions to alex@alexonautos.com. I'll see you next week.